Alright, today we're having a look at Madness is an Option 2 by Stinkin' Mushroom. Alright, so here we are playing Madness is an Option 2. I do apologize if the music is a little bit loud because it's a rockin' track. It is a rockin' track, but it is a creator-made track, which means that the sound balance may not be particularly great. Unfortunately, we got caught in a loading screen just as we started up classic mode. Madness is an Option 2 is one of my favorite go-to games for solid-on shooters done in LBP. Actually, LBP 2, to be perfectly precise and honest. The best shooter done in LBP anything is Kronos' demo series, which will be evolving into an adventure game. But this one it's solid on, even if it does have a fair amount of loading. So basically it's a WYSIWYG type of game. What you see is what you get. Gonna have a lot of ships flying at us. We are gonna have to kill them all. I haven't done Classic in a while. Usually I play Trip, which we'll probably take a look at in some pips, where you've got more of an environment that you're going through. This is a little bit more set up almost like Geometry Wars, without a background to muddle things up, excuse me. But still, the action is pretty fast, it is pretty furious. We can see that we've got a bit of a life meter up in the upper right corner. And it is a fine one there. Easy to keep track of what's going on, easy to keep track of how much you've got left to go. But it's just nice and fast, very, very smooth. And when you play in the other modes, you can actually see that there are lighting effects that are keyed up to the music, which is really, really quite slick. I'm almost wondering if I should have taken a look at one of the other modes for for our episode. Because Classic doesn't have quite as much going for it as far as visual presentation, which you do see more strongly in the other modes that they got going on. But it's a very, very nice shooter. It evokes a lot of the kind of top-down and in other modes side-scrolling shooters that I played growing up as a kid, which is something that I appreciate. I'm not a super nostalgic person, but I do think that mode of game is a really good one, and one that doesn't really seem to get as much play. Or maybe it's just getting play in places that I'm not seeing it recently. Although you do have Neko Navy, so there's that. And Steriden, so there is that. Maybe it's getting more play than I realize. I'm just completely out of the loop. And that would make a lot of sense, because I often am. But we've only got about 5 seconds left, so we're gonna have to talk about this back in the hub, but we will see you there. See yas! And we're back, and Madness is an Option 2 by Stinkin' Mushroom, and I think it might be a little bit surprising if you've only seen the video that we just did, but I do definitely think that it's a green circle level, and as we kind of mentioned in the video, that this is one of those levels I think did live up to the promise of LBP 2 being a game creator as opposed to just a platform creator. It's a very, very smooth, very, very stylish, top-down, old-school shooter, the type I really don't see that much anymore. It reminded me a lot of being a kid and the old, like, tabletop-style arcade games where you'd actually, like, sit at it and look down at the screen. I haven't seen one of those in yonks. I mean, honestly, it's probably been more than 30 years since I've seen one. The issue is that what we looked at in the video is probably the most bland of the 4 modes. Classic mode is just strictly you're fighting waves of ships. They progressively get faster. Nothing really happens on the screen. There's no particularly interesting effects going on. The music is great, but we will talk about that in a minute. But it's not really... It doesn't really sing, and I don't think it really showcases how cool the level is. We've got those 3 other modes going on that I did play for pips, and I usually when I play this, I play either Oh my god, I've forgotten the name. What are the modes? I think it was colors. I play either trip or colors. I haven't played wall before, and I took a look at that. That was the first one that I looked at, doing the pips. And wall is pretty interesting. Basically, you're just, well, diving around these walls, trying not to get hit too many times and taking damage. They start off as vertically standing walls moving from the right to the left, but eventually you get spinning walls and walls that are moving up and down, and it's really interesting. It's really kind of tight. The only thing that I had an issue with wall was I wasn't entirely sure where I needed to be to get the points to trigger. Like, sometimes the walls would pass, but I would be far away from them, and it seemed like that there wasn't any point triggering up there. When I was diving around a little bit closer, it seemed like I was in a point trigger zone, but it's a really neat mode, and it gets really quite hectic later on. Now, the colors mode is very similar to the classic mode. God, I hope it's called colors. I didn't write it down, and now I can't check. We'll talk about that later, too. Basically, you've got the waves of enemies, although there is a different enemy set going on there. But the difference being that there are a lot of environmental effects going on. There's a lot of flashing lights, there's a lot of like blobs showing up on the screen and squares showing up on the screen. It's all really cool and patterned. It works well with the music, it's timed well with the music. It may be a difficult mode to play for people who are photosensitive, and the Stinkin' Mushroom does make kind of a little throwaway joke, which maybe shouldn't be done, on the title screen about, you know, how there are more seizures in this mode. Well, yeah, if you're photosensitive, this one might be a tough one. If you're not photosensitive, though, it's really, really cool, and it can be quite challenging because of certain of the flashing lights and the bleed-in colors can make it pretty difficult to see your ship, but it's really fast, it's really frenetic, and it's the mode that I ended up getting the highest score in. Now, the last mode, nostalgic is not really the word that I want, because nostalgic is more of a positive feeling, but the one that reminds me, I think, the most of childhood games that I played was Trip, and Trip is a side-scrolling mode as opposed to a lockdown mode like Classic or Colors, where you're basically flying through this alien landscape. There is a discrete start and end point. It's not something that goes on forever. And you're trying to kill the different alien ships that are flying up near you. I mean, we've all played that mode before, I think. But, well, at least games in that mode before. It's a lot of fun. There's some neat little details going around on the ground. Little aliens walking around. It's really quite tough at times. It's tough to get a really high score because you're trying to kill everything before it gets off of the screen. And that is... It's a bit of a hard sell, to be perfectly honest. This is the first time, actually, that I've played Trip actually all the way through to completion, and I did get to see the ending, and the ending is really quite cute. I wasn't entirely sure if the ship that was following me was going to try to kill me or not. I mean, there are hearts coming off the ship, so we assume it's a friendly ship. But welcome home to me or welcome home to the enemy alien ships. I'm not entirely sure. I really, really love this level. There are a few issues that minor issues, extremely minor issues, to be perfectly honest, that I think just need to be brought up as a warning. One that we've talked about before, particularly with the colors mode, that if you do have any photosensitivity, it's not the mode for you. Don't play that one. The other three modes, there's nothing quite so flashy on the screen, so it shouldn't cause any difficulty. But colors, definitely avoid colors. One of the other issues that I had, and this might just be how scores were kind of presented or calculated in LBP 2. I've never really played around with score givers too much, so I'm not entirely sure how they work out, but there's that constant popping in of scores, like score bubbles popping when you kill ships, and it detracts a little bit. It felt like it detracted a little bit from the ambiance of the level, because it doesn't really mesh necessarily well with the music. You get used to it pretty quickly. It tends to it tends to bleed out because it's so constant, if that makes any sense. That it does to me, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it can, especially at the very beginning, be a little bit of a distractor to the level. The other issue that I had was, if you finish the level and you go to continue, there's a forced level link to the soundtrack by Trash Mustache. and you can, it's actually a cool little discrete, listen to the music, choose the music that you want to listen to type of level. But I personally myself have never been a fan of force level links. I don't have a lot of time. Loading screens are dangerous. We're going to talk about that. So, like, to kind of have to do this thing when I may be planning to do other things, it always throws me for a little bit of a loop. That may not be a big issue for you. Hopefully it's not a big issue for you. Hopefully time for you is a lot friendlier than it is for me, but it does stand out. The last point, and this is one that comes up I think in 90% of the levels that use creator-made tracks, is that the music is not well balanced. It's very, very loud. Now, if you're just kind of like playing off the TV, if you got the remote next to you, you can turn down the music. It's not really a big issue. If you're playing with headphones, it will blast in your ears. And you may not be, prepared for that. You may not be ready for the music to explode like that. And if you're like streaming, as I do, that it can drown out your voice really quite easily on the microphone. I'm hoping it wasn't too much of an issue here because I've had my microphone bumped up for streams because a lot of games are loud, or else I've got my settings set poorly. But yeah, it's loud. It's really loud. You're gonna have to turn it down. I would encourage you to turn it down. But yeah, I love this level, and like I say, along with Kronos's demo levels, that this is one of my favorite shooters in just anything, really. Might mean that I need to play more shooters, but I think it's really, really solid, it's really, really smooth, and it's an awful lot of fun. And it's really quite challenging. Whew. Folks, this has been a whole thing for me. I've been getting game crashes, and like full corruption of profile style game crashes. I was really terrified. Well, okay, terrified is overselling it, but I was really worried this morning because I'm doing this before work. I don't have like a lot of time. I've got to get in the shower. I've got to get ready. But you record when you have any time to record, and I was really worried like setting up the hub was going to cause it to crash again, or if I screwed up a take and I had to replay the level, that loading the hub up again would cause it to crash, and I'd have to reset all of, reset the hub so I could do the recording again. I'm glad that we got it in one take because, yeah, I don't want to risk two, and hopefully the game won't crash out when we go back to the pod this time. But yeah, I'm going to be budgeting time for crashes into making the episodes from now on. It's hopefully not going to cause any problems with our update schedules. It's not going to cause any problems with actually making the show, as long as I do realize that time there may need to be a couple of extra hours to play around with setups and to delete corrupted profiles and download the corrupted profiles again. Hopefully you won't notice this, and hopefully it won't be anything that's going to be seen on the viewer end, but yeah, it is something that I'm really feeling on my end here recently. But it didn't crash this time, and just my fingers are crossed and my toes are crossed that it's not going to become an issue moving on into the future. If it does, I'll be upfront and I'll let people know that it is becoming an issue. But like I said, we got our fingers crossed. And that pretty much does it for us here this go about. Everyone, we've moved on to the new channel, and folks are kind of drifting in from the old channel, and I just want to thank everyone for all the support so far. This means so much to me. It's such a big deal for me, and you're all wonderful people. You're all absolutely wonderful people, but I've really got to get going. It's time for the shower. So from me, Risco, here in Osaka, to all of you out there, wherever you may happen to be, thank you. Arigato, sayonara, see you, and ciao.